Okay, so this week, or last week actually, I broke one of my favourite pairs of tongs. They're the ones I use for 3/8 flat material. Um, I've welded them up time and time again. I've had them for years and years and years. So I finally decided that I'd make myself a new pair. So that's what this video is about. Now, before we just get cracking on it, I just want to preempt a question which I'm bound to get asked, because I always get asked it about my tong making, and that is, why do I cut the jaws off instead of drawing out the reins? Well, if you're young, fit, got all the time in the world, or even got a power hammer, then yeah, go ahead, draw out your reins. But I'm old, I ache all over, and I haven't got time to be mucking about drawing out a bit of round when I can just pick a bit off the shelf and weld it on. It's simple as that. It's just economics really, and it's easier for me. And there's no reason why it shouldn't work just as well. Well, all my tongs I've ever made, I've just welded the reins on. It just makes sense. So that's the answer to that one, which, as I say, I get asked all the time. So let's crack on and have a go at making some. Okay, so I'm using some 1.5 inch flat bar. I'm just flattening down about inch and a quarter maybe. Now I want to make these fairly chunky, because the ones that they are replacing weren't very chunky, which is why they kept breaking. So I want to keep that at least 1/4 inch thick, if not a little bit more. Just round it up a little bit. So that's about it for that bit ish. Now then, as I've said in my other videos, turn it 90 degrees. Doesn't matter whether you go left or right, but just go 90 degrees. So I'm going to go right this time, because I usually go left. And just square that back up again. Just so that it's not running up the centre anymore. You don't want it completely off to the right, but it doesn't want to be running up the centre. And I want to try and keep a fair bit of width from that 1/2 inch. So doing out of flat works quite well rather than doing it out of square, because you're halfway there already. So we've done that one, we've done that one. Now turn it right again, another 90 degrees, and again about inch and a quarter, something like that. I think it's probably about an inch actually. You can see that's thickening up mighty, so I've got to thin that back out again. So I want to keep it to round about the 1/2 inch. I want to probably go down to 3/8 actually, but I don't want to go down that far early on. We can always narrow it down later on. You don't want to narrow it too much now and then find that, oh, actually I could have done with it a bit thicker. So I want to leave it fairly thick. You can see that's basically it already. And as I say, if I'd got a power hammer or I was fit and young, I might well carry on and draw out that right out into a rein, but I'm not, and I haven't got the time. Just try and keep it fairly square. You want to try and keep the jaw sort of, just going to tidy that end up, but you want to try and keep the jaw at 90 degrees to the sort of bit where the bolt goes through. Otherwise you can end up with your jaws all sort of pissy-eyed one way. So I'm just going to tidy that up again, bring it back a bit rounder. Again, don't want to be thinning that out too much because I want to try and keep as much meat in the jaw part of it as possible. Well, within reason, obviously. Alright, that's getting there. I think we'll probably call that a day almost at that. Ah, no, we'll get the flatter out. I couldn't get it off the hook. Just give that a little bit of a tidy up. Take a few of the hammer marks out. And try and sort of level it up a bit. I think I bought this the other day. Well, let's say the other day, a couple of weeks ago, off eBay. Right, we're going to cut it off there and draw that out. Yeah, I bought that flatter off eBay for wasn't a lot, about 20 quid I think, something like that. Alright, these are the reins I cut off my old tongs, the ones that broke. They're pretty ancient, but don't like to waste, so I'm just going to round them off, put a chamfer on there, weld them onto the onto the jaws, sorry. So I want to bring the jaw down to roughly that size that the rein is, which I think is about ½ inch, proper ½ inch. So I'll just draw that out. I think that's almost there. Let's have a little look. Yeah, that's not far out. By the time I get some weld in there, that'll be about right. So let's just tidy it up without trying to draw it down anymore. So just tidy that up. If it'll stay still. So that's roughly it. Just going to flatten it off again. Now I've bought my flatter, I might as well use it. It's just takes the pain out of levelling things off, that flatter. Trouble is, it's difficult to grab hold of. Ideally you'd have a striker so you could hold the flatter and the tongs and then just get someone to strike for you. But when you work on your own, it ain't going to happen. So that's about it. What I'm going to do now is weld the rein on to there, put plenty of weld on so that I've got enough to blend back in. So let's just whip over and do that. Right, giving it a good bit of weld. As you can see, we're just going to blend that back in. As I say, there's no reason why that shouldn't last as long as my other ones have done for years and years and years. Just going to work this back in and go from round to square. And you can see now why you didn't want to go too thin early on, because every operation just thins things out a little bit more. So if you thinned it out too much early on, you get to this stage and you think, actually I haven't got enough material. That's getting there. Not far off. Get a smaller hammer, a bit more control. And that's the other thing a lot of people seem to say. Get a brush to blow to brush the scale off. Well, why? I can just blow it off. You don't have to put your tools down and muck about with to use a brush. Well, to blow it, you do with using a brush. I don't know. Maybe people don't like to be messy. Right, so you can see that that's blended in quite nicely now. Gone from that round back into the square. That ain't bad. Quite pleased with that. Call it a day at that. Like I say, I haven't got time to be mucking about. So what we've got to do now is do the second one. Do exactly the same. I'll probably go a little bit quieter on this one. You've seen it all done once. Just using the edge of the anvil to square it up a bit, or round it up a bit. You don't need to go too mad with that, because as you've seen, when you offset it, you'll need to round it up again anyway. I'm just checking against the other one for thickness. Got that a bit hot. Just a little touch hot. Alright, off to the right again this time. Same as before. Knock that one down. Again, as I say, you've got to square that back up, and see that there, it's gone a little bit off from 90 to the, I don't know if it's perpendicular or whatever you call it, but it wasn't, so I just had to bring it round a bit. Okay, so that's that one, now we've got to do that one. Let's get it warm again. These really don't take long. This is about just over half an hour video, and it's pretty much in real time, apart from the odd I'm slow, taking out the heats. So you could probably say, if you said an hour, and that's from start to finish, done and dusted. And I think you take quite a bit longer if you had to do it all by hand, drawing out the rounds and stuff. Again, just taking those edges off. We're getting there already. Obviously, if you were making these all the time, you might be able to have a little sort of like a hammer tool that you could use on a power hammer. You could almost knock the shape out in one go. Use a big bit of square or something or other. But I very rarely make tongs these days. Once I've sort of made my allotted amount for quarter, 5/16, half inch, 7/16, just check again against the other one. Yeah, so once, there you go, it's getting that. Once you've made the ones you use regularly, you might occasionally need to make a new set for something that is a new job. But your basic everyday tongs, you make them good in the first place, they will last you. As I say, I've had most of mine donkey's years. Just flatten that out again. Quite handy, this little flatter. They're not all that dear, but you can buy them for about 40 quid brand new. But there's some guy on eBay trying to sell one for about 100 quid. I think he thought it was some fantastic antique he'd got. I don't think he ever sold it, but it was on there for months and months and months. Right, so there we go. Cut that one off. Draw that out like the other one. Get rid of that. Moves around quite easily, this material, with a big hammer. Just check, see if we're nearly there. Yeah, that's almost there, I think. Time we get that on there with a bit of weld. So again, we'll just see if we can tidy that up a bit. On the floor. Got a nice bit of thick rubber on the floor that I stand on, which is nice in the winter, keeping your feet warm off the concrete. It's a bit of old conveyor belting, and luckily it doesn't burn that easily, so keep dropping these hot bits of iron on it. It's lasted well over the years. Right, so I'm going to go and weld that on. So we've got that in the vise. You can see it's just about the same sort of diameter. I'll put a nice big bit of weld on there. Move it around and do the same on all four sides. Get plenty of penetration and plenty of weld to move about, blend back in. If you don't put enough weld, you'll end up with sort of look like quite a weak joint. You'll see the marks where it's literally just gone across the join. If you put plenty on, you've got a nice bit to move either side of the joint. Nice cup of rosy leek. Oh, that's better. Right, blend this one in. Again, it's just taking your time. Don't work too much on the round, because obviously that will thin out more, or thin down from what it was. Try and work more on the weld and the square. Alright, change hammers. Blend that in again. Light touches. Just chamfer those edges off the square. No real point, but it just looks nice. Again, square that up. Make sure that's at 90 to the rest of it. And there you go, we should have a pair. There you are, that's not bad. So, next thing, drill the holes and try and put them together, and that's not as straightforward as you might think. So make use of the last bit of heat. And that bit there, that round, that radius is actually quite important, which you'll see in a minute. Level that up. Right, so let's see if we can put them together. Right, so 2 blanks, fairly rough but sort of finished, and if you try and put them together you'll see pretty quick that they won't go, and that is because in this corner here you've got like a little triangle of metal. I don't know if you can see it there, it's just by my first finger in there. Now if you've got nice sharp corners on your anvil you can muck about and beat them out with your anvil, but I haven't, so I never bother because it's just as easy to either grind them out or file them out. So not many people have that sharp an edge on their anvil these days that they can get it off. So I'll stick it up in the vise, and you can see it there just by my finger. It's just that little triangle there. Now you want to get the whole of the joint, sort of the mating surface that's going to mate with the other one, flat, and take off a little bit of the back there, because you'll end up, again there'll be another little sort of triangle there. You want to get that nice and square. Now just on the bottom there, you can't really see it very well, but there is a bit of a lump that needs to come off as well, because when the jaws pass over each other that will get in the way if it's not gone. You can just see there where I've just taken the top off it. It needs a little bit more than that. So you can file all that away, or if you're confident doing it you can do what I do and do it with a grinder. Didn't realise there I was pointing at the camera, but never mind. Just flatten that off and take that little nick out at the same time, all in one operation with a decent flat disc. So I'll do the other one and then we'll see how they come together now. Right, so I've done both of them. You can see the inside's nice and flat now, and it's nice and sort of straight on the inside on the mating surface, so they got a nice meeting. Now this radius I was talking about earlier, that's quite important, because when they go together, let's see if we can roughly put it together, when they open they're going to catch on that little piece that I was telling you about where you run the rasp in. As it opens you can see there where it touches. So if that radius isn't right, or that little corner isn't taken out under there, they won't open. So that there is quite important. You can obviously fiddle about with it, you know, once you've got the hole drilled, just to get it right. But as you can see now, well, I hope you can, if I can get the camera to get in there. If I hold that together, that fits nicely, nice and tight together. So let's drill the hole. Right, so I'll put a little centre dot, and I'm going to use one of these 3/8 rivets that I found a few of kicking about. So we'll drill the hole, put a pilot hole in. Can't actually find the 3/8 drill, what I've done with it. Let's see. Start her up. Oh, for Pete's sake. It's not plugged in. I've got 3 plugs up here. And 4 machines. And it's always the one you want that isn't plugged in. Never mind. Right, let's try again. Now I've swapped the plugs over. Here we go. So I'm just going to put pilot through. A little bit of CT90. Cracking cutting fluid, that is. Once I've piloted this one, I've now got to try and put them together so I can pilot the other one from this one, so that we get them somewhere near right. Because if you just go by centre dot on off, you know, centre dot them both, you can bet your bottom dollar that they won't line up. So this is I find the easiest way. Just hold them exactly where you want them. And just give them a little centre dot. There you can see that one's just marked. And then we'll carry on with that one. This is the drill I'm using. I think it's a 5.5mm or something or other. But it's one of these long series. It's about 6 inches long. Don't know where it came from. Just found it in my drill box the other day. Great big long thing. Right, now this is just over 3/8. I'm not exactly sure what size it is, but it's a little bit of a clearance on 3/8. And there's 2 reasons for that. One is I don't want the tongs to bind when they get hot, and also I want it big enough for the rivet to go in when it's hot, when I'm trying to rivet them, because obviously you heat the rivet up, it's going to expand. Now you try and put that through a 3/8 hole once you've heated it up and it won't go. So you just got to allow for a little bit of expansion. Go through this one. Another drop of jollop. Right, so fits in there nicely. Nice bit of clearance. There you go. And now's the time, if they don't operate properly, is the time to file and muck about. Right, so I've got 1 snap head, but I need 2. So what I've done is just drilled a hole, well, not a hole, a sort of a countersink that the rivet can sit in that side. Then we shall place one on there, the other one not like that, or like that. So this is why you need to muck about with them first to make sure you get it all the right way around. And then once they're on, we shall put the snap head on there and give it a wallop. That's the theory. Normally I don't bother doing this, I just use an old bolt and then just round it over with my hammer, but I just thought for a change I'd try doing a bit of riveting. Just take the burr off, there's a little bit of a burr from the drill. Right, so let's get my procedure right, because I have in the past put these together wrong. It's not a big issue, you've just got to cut the old rivet off. It's just a pain. Let me see if these tongs will hold this. I'm going to stick it in the fire and I don't want to lose it. I think they might be alright. Right, so it doesn't need to be horrendously hot. You might be thinking it's not hot enough, but rivets by their nature are inherently soft. I don't know what they're made of. I think perhaps they've got a bit of lead in them, maybe, to make them soft, because you can form rivets quite easily cold. Now there you go, it's nearly done, and that's gone rock solid, absolutely rock solid, so I can't move them. But don't panic, that's not an issue. Just stick them back in the fire, get the whole thing hot again, including the jaws, get it all nice and warm, and that will ease up. I'm just going to finish off the rivet. That's better, it's not bad. And you see they've eased up because the whole lot's hot. And as you cool them, they will tighten up again, so you have to keep them moving, cool them out in the water, keep them moving. If they go tight, bring them out of the water and ease them up again. And whilst they're hot like this, you can get them to the right size. So we're going to do all that before we cool them out. So that's the next job, is to get them all hot again and get the material that you're going to use and get it to fit. So a bit of a clear up. Got them hot again, see they go nice and loose when you get them hot. Now that's way too sloppy, so we're just going to close them up a little bit, just gently. You don't have to go too mad. Put your material back in and then close the jaws over the material, making sure that you've got enough gap on your reins. And then you can also tweak them left and right to get them running over the top of each other where you're going to hold them. So back there, you can muck about with that, you know, to your heart's content until you're happy with them, but that's how I like them. Just bent over. As I say, they're going tight, so just keep them moving, and cool them out. So stick them in the water. Keep them moving, and you'll find that sometimes they'll go real tight, so bring them out of the water, loosen them off again, cool them out, loosen them off. That's all there is to it. So give them a quick clean up. I've got myself a new pair of tongs. Right, so I've just run wire brush over them, the electric wire brush. You can see they're quite chunky. They're going to do the job much better than the last pair. And as I say, the last pair lasted for years and years and years. Now you can see what I meant about getting the jaws to touch. See, they're touching all the way across, top and bottom. That's really got it. That's real nice and tight with very little grip. You know, I'm not having to grip too hard to get good purchase on there. So there you go, new pair of tongs, the second-hand pair of reins, and they're going to do me a treat. I'm pleased with them. So hopefully I won't have to make any more for some time. So thanks for watching. Hope you have luck if you make some yourself. We'll catch you on the next one.